The morning sun beat down mercilessly on Camp Lejeune as Staff Sergeant Maria Santos adjusted the scope on her M40A6 sniper rifle. Sweat dripped from her forehead despite the early hour, but her hands remained steady. She had been doing this for 8 years, and muscle memory guided every movement. "Hey Santos, nice ink," called out Corporal Jake Mitchell from across the shooting range. His voice carried the familiar tone of mockery that had become routine over the past 6 months since Maria had arrived at the base. "What's that supposed to be, a butterfly?" Maria didn't look up from her rifle. The tattoo on her left shoulder depicted a fierce eagle with outstretched wings, talons gripping a banner that read, "Death before dishonor." It was a memorial piece for her fallen brother, also a Marine, who had died in Afghanistan 3 years earlier. But she had learned long ago that explaining personal tattoos to immature soldiers was pointless. "It's called focus, Mitchell. You should try it sometime," she replied without lifting her eye from the scope. The other Marines in the unit chuckled, but not in support of Maria. She had quickly discovered that being one of only 3 women in a predominantly male sniper unit meant every action was scrutinized, every mistake magnified, and every success questioned. The tattoo had become just another target for their juvenile humor. Lieutenant Colonel James Harrison, the base commander, watched from the observation tower. At 45, he was a career Marine with deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan under his belt. He had seen plenty of soldiers come and go, but Maria Santos intrigued him. Her file was impressive: top scores in sniper school, commendations from previous units, and a confirmed kill count that exceeded many of her male counterparts. Yet the integration hadn't been smooth. "Sir, permission to speak freely," said Gunnery Sergeant Robert Taylor as he approached Harrison in the tower. "Go ahead, Gunny." The men are still having trouble accepting Santos. Yesterday during training, Private Rodriguez actually questioned her wind calculation in front of the whole squad. She was right, but it's undermining unit cohesion. Harrison nodded grimly. He had anticipated this challenge when the Pentagon mandated increased female integration into combat roles. The policy was sound, but changing decades of military culture took time. "What's your assessment of her capabilities?" "Honestly, sir, she's the best shooter we've had in 5 years. Her precision under pressure is remarkable, and she has an intuitive understanding of ballistics that can't be taught. But if the men don't respect her, it could be dangerous in a combat situation." On the range below, Maria fired her first shot. The target, positioned 800 meters away, showed a perfect center hit. She cycled the bolt smoothly and fired again. Another perfect hit. The range fell silent as she continued her demonstration, placing 10 consecutive shots within a 2-inch grouping at extreme range. "Show off," muttered Corporal David Chen, but there was grudging respect in his voice. Maria finally lifted her head from the scope and looked around at the gathered Marines. "Anyone else want to try this distance?" she asked calmly. The challenge hung in the air. Several Marines exchanged glances, but none stepped forward. They had all tried the 800-meter shots earlier and failed to achieve even half her accuracy. Sergeant First Class Marcus Williams, a veteran sniper with 12 years of service, broke the uncomfortable silence. "That's some fine shooting, Santos. Where'd you learn to read wind like that?" It was the first genuine compliment Maria had received from her unit. "Practice, Sergeant, and my brother taught me to hunt when I was 12. He said patience and observation matter more than natural talent." Williams nodded approvingly. He had lost friends in combat due to poor marksmanship, and he respected skill regardless of its source. "Your brother military?" "Was 2nd Battalion, 1st Marines, KIA in Helmand Province." The revelation changed the atmosphere subtly. Several Marines shifted uncomfortably, recognizing they had been mocking a memorial tattoo. But the damage to unit dynamics had already been done over months of similar interactions. Later that evening in the mess hall, Maria sat alone picking at her dinner. She had grown accustomed to isolation, but it still stung. In her previous unit, she had been accepted after proving herself in combat. Here, peacetime politics seemed more difficult to navigate than actual warfare. "Mind if I sit?" Williams appeared with his tray. "Free country," Maria replied. Williams settled across from her and ate in silence for several minutes before speaking. "You know, when I first enlisted, there was a guy in my unit who everyone thought was too small for infantry. Puerto Rican kid, maybe 5'6", 140 pounds soaking wet. The other Marines called him Mouse and constantly questioned whether he belonged. Maria continued eating, but she was listening. Turned out that Mouse saved half the platoon during our first deployment, crawled through enemy fire to call in a medevac when our radio operator went down. Sometimes the people who don't fit the traditional mold end up being exactly what the unit needs. Is this supposed to make me feel better? Maria asked. Just saying that proving yourself takes time, and some people need more convincing than others. The next morning brought news that would test Williams' philosophy. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison called an emergency formation at 600 hours. The Marines assembled quickly, sensing the urgency in their commander's demeanor. "Gentlemen and lady," Harrison began, nodding toward Maria, "we have received orders for immediate deployment. There's a situation developing in Syria involving American hostages, and our sniper team has been specifically requested to provide overwatch support for a SEAL rescue operation." The Marines straightened. Real missions meant real consequences, where competence mattered more than politics. "This is not a training exercise," Harrison continued. "You will be working alongside SEAL Team 6 operators who have zero tolerance for mistakes. Every member of this team was selected based on capability, not politics. I expect you to remember that." As the briefing continued with logistical details, Maria noticed the subtle change in her teammates' attitudes. The jokes stopped, and she began receiving practical questions about equipment and procedures instead of challenges to her authority. Combat had a way of focusing priorities. That afternoon, as they prepared their gear for deployment, Corporal Mitchell approached Maria's workstation. She looked up cautiously, expecting another juvenile comment about her tattoo. "Santos," he said awkwardly, "I wanted to apologize for the crack about your ink. Williams told me about your brother. That was out of line." Maria studied his face, searching for sincerity. Mitchell was young, maybe 22, and she could see genuine regret in his expression. "Apology accepted. Just remember that everyone has a story." "Yes, ma'am." As Mitchell walked away, Maria felt a small measure of hope. Perhaps combat deployment would provide the opportunity to finally prove her worth to the unit. She had excelled in previous deployments, but those had been with different teams who had seen her capabilities firsthand. This group only knew her reputation, which apparently wasn't enough. The flight to Syria would take 18 hours with refueling stops. During the long journey, Maria reviewed intelligence reports and mission parameters. The hostages were 3 American aid workers captured by a militant group operating in the mountainous region near the Turkish border. Early intelligence suggested they were being held in a fortified compound with excellent defensive positions. The SEAL team would conduct the primary assault, while Maria's unit provided sniper overwatch from elevated positions approximately 1,000 meters from the target. It was a complex mission requiring precise coordination and flawless execution. There would be no room for the interpersonal conflicts that had plagued their training. As the transport aircraft crossed into European airspace, Sergeant Williams approached Maria's seat. "You ever worked with SEALs before?" "Once in Afghanistan. They're professionals, but they don't suffer incompetence gladly. Just remember that tomorrow politics don't matter, only results." Maria nodded, understanding the deeper meaning of his words. This mission would either validate her place in the unit or confirm her teammates' doubts. There would be no middle ground. She closed her eyes and thought about her brother Miguel, who had faced similar challenges during his service. He had always told her that proving yourself wasn't about winning popularity contests. It was about being there when people needed you most. Tomorrow would be that test. The aircraft continued its eastward journey through the night, carrying Maria toward a confrontation that would define not only her career, but also her unit's perception of what it meant to be a Marine sniper. In the cargo hold below, her rifle case sat secured among the other equipment, waiting for the moment when her skills would speak louder than any words ever could. As dawn approached over the Mediterranean, Maria Santos prepared for the most important mission of her military career, knowing that success or failure would echo far beyond the Syrian mountains, where American lives hung in the balance. The forward operating base in northeastern Syria buzzed with controlled activity as Maria's unit disembarked from their transport. The temporary facility, little more than fortified tents and equipment stations, served as the staging area for missions across the volatile region. Maria shouldered her gear bag and rifle case, immediately nodding the professional atmosphere that replaced the casual environment of Camp Lejeune. Commander Nathan Cross stood briefing his SEAL operators near the communications tent. At 38, Cross had led more high-risk operations than most officers experienced in entire careers. His weathered face and calm demeanor commanded instant respect from everyone in the vicinity. Maria watched him gesture towards satellite imagery while his team listened intently, their equipment already prepared for immediate deployment. "Marines, report to Tent Charlie for mission briefing," called out Lieutenant Colonel Harrison. The briefing tent contained sophisticated communications equipment and detailed maps of the target area. Intelligence Officer Captain Lisa Rodriguez began the presentation with updated satellite imagery showing the hostage compound. "The target is here," Rodriguez pointed to a cluster of buildings nestled in a mountain valley. Three structures arranged in a defensive triangle with clear sight lines in all directions. Our hostages are believed to be held in the central building, but their exact location within the structure remains unknown. Maria studied the terrain carefully. The compound sat in a natural bowl surrounded by rocky outcroppings that provided excellent sniper positions, but also offered the enemy numerous defensive advantages. Any rescue attempt would require perfect coordination between ground assault forces and overwatch elements. "Weather conditions are favorable," Rodriguez continued. "Clear skies with light winds from the northwest at 5 to 8 miles per hour. Temperature will be approximately 75 degrees Fahrenheit during the operation window." Commander Cross entered the briefing tent, his presence immediately commanding attention. Maria had heard stories about SEAL Team 6 operators, but seeing Cross in person confirmed their reputation for quiet professionalism. He moved with the confidence of someone who had survived dozens of similar operations. "Marines," Cross addressed Maria's unit directly, "your overwatch positions will be critical to mission success. We need accurate fire support and real-time intelligence on enemy movements. This is not a training exercise where mistakes can be corrected later." His eyes moved across each team member, assessing their readiness. When his gaze reached Maria, she met it steadily, recognizing a test of confidence. Cross nodded almost imperceptibly before continuing. "The enemy force consists of approximately 15 militants with military training and adequate weapons. They have prepared defensive positions and will likely fight to the death rather than surrender. Your precision will be the difference between success and catastrophe." Sergeant Williams raised his hand. "Sir, what's our engagement protocol if civilians appear in the area?" "Positive identification required before any shots are fired. These militants sometimes use local civilians as human shields, so extreme caution is mandatory. One civilian casualty could compromise the entire mission." The briefing continued for another hour, covering communication protocols, extraction procedures, and contingency plans. Maria absorbed every detail, knowing that her performance would be scrutinized by both her Marine unit and the SEAL operators. This mission represented her opportunity to finally prove her capabilities beyond any doubt. After the briefing, the Marines began final equipment checks. Maria disassembled her rifle completely, examining each component for any sign of damage or malfunction. The M40A6 had served her well in previous deployments, but she never assumed anything about equipment reliability. "That's thorough," commented Corporal Chen, watching Maria's methodical inspection. "My brother always said that your rifle is your life insurance policy. Would you trust a policy you hadn't read?" Chen considered this wisdom while checking his own equipment with noticeably more attention to detail. The approaching mission was changing dynamics within the unit as theoretical skills became practical necessities. Commander Cross approached Maria's position while she adjusted her scope settings. "Staff Sergeant Santos, I've reviewed your service record. Impressive kill count in Afghanistan." "Thank you, sir. Different terrain than this, but the principles remain the same." "Indeed, what's your assessment of this target area?" Maria appreciated being asked for her professional opinion rather than being questioned about her qualifications. The compound's position provides natural cover from most directions, but those same mountains limit their escape routes. The biggest challenge will be the range, over 1,000 meters to the nearest effective position. Wind conditions look stable, but that distance requires absolute precision. Cross nodded approvingly. "My thoughts exactly. We'll need your team to provide continuous overwatch during our approach and assault phases. Any movement outside the target buildings needs to be reported immediately. Understood, sir. As Cross walked away, Maria noticed several of her teammates watching the exchange with new interest. Being consulted as a subject matter expert by a SEAL commander carried weight that no amount of training demonstrations could match. The sun set over the Syrian mountains as the teams made final preparations for the midnight operation. Maria cleaned her rifle one last time, loaded her magazines with match-grade ammunition, and reviewed range cards for various positions around the target compound. Every detail had been planned and rehearsed, but she knew that no plan survived first contact with the enemy unchanged. Corporal Mitchell approached her position as she packed her gear. "Santos, I wanted to say something before we head out." Maria looked up from her equipment check. "I've been thinking about what you said about everyone having a story. I realize I've been judging you based on assumptions instead of observing your actual capabilities. That was wrong." The admission surprised Maria with its maturity. Mitchell had seemed like just another immature Marine making jokes to fit in with the group. "We all make assumptions, Mitchell. What matters is being willing to change them when we get better information. I hope I get the chance to see you work tonight. Williams says you're the best shooter he's ever seen." "We'll find out together." At 2200 hours, both teams began their movement toward the target area. The SEAL operators moved with silent precision through the rocky terrain, their black uniforms and night vision equipment making them nearly invisible in the darkness. Maria's unit took a different route toward their overwatch positions on the ridgeline overlooking the compound. The hike required 2 hours of careful navigation through treacherous mountain terrain. Maria carried her rifle and 60 pounds of additional equipment, but her physical conditioning from years of military training made the journey manageable. Around her, the other Marines moved with similar efficiency, their earlier doubts about the mission replaced by professional focus. At midnight, both teams reached their assigned positions. Maria's unit established overwatch from 3 different locations, providing comprehensive coverage of the target area. Through her night vision scope, Maria could clearly see the compound buildings and several armed guards patrolling the perimeter. "Overwatch 1 in position," Maria reported quietly into her radio. "Overwatch 2 in position," confirmed Sergeant Williams from his location 200 meters to her left. "Overwatch 3 in position," reported Corporal Chen from the eastern ridge. Commander Cross's voice came through the radio with calm authority. "All units, this is actual. We are beginning our approach. Overwatch, report any movement outside the target buildings immediately." Maria adjusted her scope and began systematic observation of the compound. Through the green-tinted display of her night vision equipment, she counted 8 guards visible around the perimeter. 2 more walked patrol routes between the buildings while the others maintained stationary positions. The SEAL team moved like shadows across the valley floor, using natural cover and calculated timing to avoid detection. Maria watched their approach with professional admiration, recognizing the years of training required to achieve such coordination. "Overwatch 1, I have movement on the north side of Building 2, Maria reported. "Single individual appears to be a roving patrol." "Copy, Overwatch 1, we see him." The SEAL team adjusted their approach route to avoid the patrol. Maria continued scanning for additional threats, knowing that any oversight could result in American casualties. The weight of responsibility felt familiar and comfortable. This was exactly the type of mission she had trained for throughout her career. "Overwatch 3 to all units," Chen's voice crackled through the radio. "Vehicle approaching from the east, single truck with 4 occupants." This was an unexpected complication. The intelligence briefing had not mentioned regular vehicle traffic to the compound. Commander Cross would need to make a split-second decision about whether to abort the mission or adapt to the changing situation. "All units hold position," Cross ordered. "Let's see what this vehicle does." Maria watched the truck approach the compound entrance. 4 armed men disembarked and began talking with the guards at the gate. Their body language suggested this was a planned meeting rather than a random arrival. "Looks like a shift change or resupply," Williams observed over the radio. "Negative," Maria countered after studying the interaction more carefully. The newcomers are giving orders to the existing guards. This might be leadership arriving to check on the hostages. Her assessment proved correct when two of the newcomers entered the central building where the hostages were believed to be held. This development could either complicate the rescue or provide valuable intelligence about the hostages' exact location. Outstanding observation, Overwatch 1, Cross acknowledged. Continue monitoring. The professional recognition from the SEAL commander carried weight with Maria's Marine teammates. Through their night vision equipment, they had all watched the same scene, but Maria's interpretation had been the most accurate. It was exactly the type of tactical intelligence that separated average snipers from exceptional ones. For the next hour, Maria maintained continuous observation while the SEAL team maneuvered into final assault positions. She reported guard movements, weapon positions, and any changes in the compound's defensive posture. Her steady stream of accurate intelligence allowed the SEALs to adjust their plan in real time. At 1:30 hours, Commander Cross's voice came through the radio with deadly calm. All units, we are beginning final approach. Overwatch elements prepare for immediate fire support on my command. Maria settled into her shooting position and placed her crosshairs on the guard tower overlooking the compound entrance. Her breathing slowed as years of training took over. Around her, the other Marines prepared for what would likely become their most important combat engagement. The mountain valley fell silent except for the distant sound of wind through the rocky outcroppings. In the darkness below, American Special Operations Forces moved toward 3 kidnapped aid workers whose lives depended on perfect execution of a mission that had no margin for error. Maria's finger rested lightly on her trigger as she waited for the command that would begin the rescue operation. Through her scope, she could see the central building where innocent Americans waited for salvation they didn't even know was coming. This was the moment she had trained for throughout her entire military career, the chance to prove that skill and dedication mattered more than prejudice and assumptions. The fate of the mission, and the hostages, now rested in the hands of professionals who had overcome every challenge to reach this moment of truth in the Syrian mountains. The silence shattered at 1:47 hours when Commander Cross's voice cut through the radio static. Execute, execute, execute. Maria's world narrowed to the circle of her rifle scope as the SEAL assault began. Through her night vision equipment, she watched 4 black-clad figures emerge from the shadows and move toward the compound with lethal precision. The guard in her crosshairs remained oblivious to the approaching danger, casually smoking a cigarette while leaning against his post. Overwatch 1 has eyes on Guard Tower Alpha, Maria reported calmly into her radio. Target acquired. The SEAL team reached the compound's outer perimeter fence within seconds. Maria watched Commander Cross signal his team into position while she maintained focus on potential threats. Years of training had prepared her for this moment, but the reality of combat always carried unexpected variables. Overwatch 2, I have movement in Building 1, Sergeant Williams reported. 2 individuals moving toward the main entrance. Maria shifted her scope briefly to confirm Williams' observation. 2 armed guards were indeed approaching the front door of Building 1, possibly responding to some sound or signal from the SEAL team's approach. This could compromise the entire mission if they raised an alarm. Overwatch 1 to actual, Maria transmitted. Recommend immediate neutralization of Tower Alpha Guard before building guards reach communications equipment. Copy, Overwatch 1, you are cleared hot. Maria's breathing slowed to its combat rhythm as she settled into the shot. The range was 1,347 meters according to her calculations, an extreme distance requiring perfect technique and environmental assessment. The wind remained steady at 6 miles per hour from the northwest, requiring a slight adjustment to her point of aim. Her finger tightened on the trigger with gradual pressure until the rifle fired with a sharp crack that echoed across the mountain valley. Through her scope, Maria watched the guard in the tower drop instantly, killed by a precise headshot that eliminated any possibility of raising an alarm. Target down, she reported with professional calm. The suppressed sound of the rifle had been carefully calculated not to alert the other guards, but Maria immediately began scanning for any reaction from the compound. The 2 guards approaching Building 1 continued their movement, apparently unaware of their colleague's fate. Outstanding shot, Overwatch 1, Commander Cross acknowledged before switching to tactical communications. Team Alpha, proceed to primary breach point. The SEAL operators moved with fluid efficiency toward the central building where intelligence indicated the hostages were being held. Maria continued providing overwatch coverage, knowing that her role was now to protect the assault team from any external threats while they focused on the rescue operation. Overwatch 3 to all units, Corporal Chen reported. I have 2 guards taking smoking break behind Building 2. They appear relaxed, no indication of alert status. Copy Overwatch 3, continue monitoring. Maria's respect for Chen grew as she observed his steady reporting under pressure. The young Marine had matured considerably since their deployment began, focusing entirely on mission requirements rather than personal conflicts. Combat had a way of revealing people's true capabilities. Through her scope, Maria watched the SEAL team reach the central building and begin their breach operation. Explosive charges placed on the main entrance would provide rapid access while minimizing exposure time. Every second of the operation had been rehearsed and calculated for maximum efficiency. Breach in 30 seconds, Cross announced. Maria scanned the compound perimeter for any sign that the guards had detected the SEAL presence. The militants appeared to be following normal patrol routines without any heightened alertness. This was crucial. Surprise remained their primary advantage. The explosion lit up the mountain valley as the SEAL team blasted through the building entrance. Even from her position over a kilometer away, Maria felt the concussion wave and saw debris scatter in all directions. The assault phase had officially begun. Immediately, shouts erupted from around the compound as the remaining guards realized they were under attack. Maria watched through her scope as militants ran from various positions toward the central building, their movements chaotic and uncoordinated. This was exactly what the mission planners had anticipated. Multiple targets moving toward primary building, Maria reported. Request engagement authority. All Overwatch elements, you are cleared to engage any armed targets approaching the assault position, Cross commanded, while his team disappeared into the building. Maria acquired her first target, a militant running across open ground while carrying an AK-47 rifle. The range was 1,290 meters, requiring another precise calculation for wind and elevation. Her second shot dropped the target before he could reach effective firing position. Overwatch 2 engaging, Williams reported as his rifle cracked from the adjacent position. Overwatch 3 engaging, Chen confirmed as he began systematic elimination of threats from his eastern vantage point. The firefight developed quickly as the remaining militants attempted to organize a defense around the central building. Maria could hear the sharp reports of automatic weapons fire echoing across the valley as the SEAL team engaged targets inside the structure. Her job was to ensure no external reinforcements could reach the building. Overwatch 1, I count 6 targets moving from Building 2 toward your position, Maria reported while acquiring her next target. Engaging lead elements. Her third shot eliminated another militant who had been carrying what appeared to be a rocket-propelled grenade launcher. The weapon tumbled away as its operator fell, eliminating a significant threat to the SEAL team's position. Through her earpiece, Maria could hear Commander Cross coordinating his team inside the building. Hostiles down in main corridor, moving to second floor. Hostages confirmed alive in northeast room. Relief flooded through Maria at the news that all 3 aid workers had been found alive. The mission was succeeding, but the extraction phase would be equally dangerous as the remaining militants attempted to prevent their escape. Overwatch elements, be advised we have located all 3 hostages in good condition, Cross reported. Prepare to cover our extraction route to LZ Alpha. Landing Zone Alpha was a clearing approximately 500 meters south of the compound, where extraction helicopters would arrive within minutes of receiving the signal. The SEAL team would need to move the hostages across open terrain while under potential fire from surviving militants. Movement in Building 1, Williams reported. Looks like someone trying to get to the radio equipment. Maria shifted her scope to confirm the threat. A militant was indeed moving toward what appeared to be communications equipment on the first floor of Building 1. If he succeeded in calling for reinforcements, the entire mission could be compromised. I have the shot, Maria announced, calculating range and wind for the 1,410-meter engagement. The target was partially concealed behind furniture and moving erratically, making this one of the most difficult shots of her career. Maria controlled her breathing and waited for the optimal moment when the militant paused near a window. Her fourth shot shattered the window and eliminated the target before he could reach the radio. "Communications threat neutralized," she reported. "Exceptional shooting, Overwatch 1, Cross acknowledged. "We are beginning extraction with 3 packages. ETA to LZ Alpha is 6 minutes. Maria watched the SEAL team emerge from the central building with the 3 rescued hostages. Even through her night vision scope, she could see that the aid workers appeared to be ambulatory and responsive. The mission was succeeding beyond their most optimistic projections. "Overwatch elements, continue covering extraction route. Enemy reinforcements possible from northern approaches," Cross commanded as his team began moving toward the landing zone. The 6-minute journey to LZ Alpha would be the most vulnerable phase of the operation. The SEAL operators would be focused on protecting and assisting the hostages rather than engaging threats, making Overwatch coverage absolutely critical. "I have vehicle movement on Northern Road," Chen reported urgently. 2 trucks approaching at high speed, estimated 8 to 10 additional hostiles. This was the nightmare scenario that mission planners had prepared for but hoped to avoid. Enemy reinforcements arriving during the extraction phase could turn a successful rescue into a running firefight with civilian lives at stake. "Overwatch elements, engage vehicles before they reach effective firing positions," Cross ordered. "Protect the extraction at all costs." Maria shifted her scope toward the approaching vehicles, calculating the extreme range shot that would be required to stop the lead truck. At nearly 1,600 meters, this would push her rifle and skills to their absolute limits. "Taking the shot on lead vehicle," she announced, settling into position for what might be the most important shot of her military career. The truck was moving at approximately 40 miles per hour across rough terrain, requiring Maria to lead her target while compensating for wind, elevation, and the vehicle's erratic movement pattern. She had one chance to stop the reinforcements before they could threaten the extraction. Her finger found the trigger as years of training culminated in this single moment. The hostages' lives, the mission's success, and her own professional vindication all depended on absolute precision under extreme pressure. Through her scope, Maria could see Commander Cross and his team moving steadily toward the extraction point with the 3 rescued Americans. Behind them, the compound burned from the assault, while ahead of them, enemy reinforcements raced to intercept their escape route. Everything now depended on a single sniper shot across an impossible distance in the darkness of the Syrian mountains, where the difference between success and failure could be measured in mere inches. Maria's world compressed to the physics of ballistics as she tracked the lead truck through her scope. At 1,587 meters, the shot would require perfect calculation of multiple variables that could shift in milliseconds. The vehicle bounced violently across the rocky terrain, its headlights cutting through the darkness as it raced toward the extraction point. She could hear her brother Miguel's voice echoing from childhood hunting trips. "Patience, Maria. Let the shot come to you. Don't force what isn't there." The truck driver was attempting evasive maneuvers, swerving between boulders and following a zigzag pattern that made targeting extremely difficult. Maria waited for the inevitable moment when physics would force the vehicle into a predictable path around a large rock formation. "Overwatch 1, we need that vehicle stopped now," Commander Cross urged as his team reached the halfway point to the landing zone. The hostages were moving slower than anticipated, and the approaching trucks would reach firing position within 2 minutes. "Standing by," Maria replied with absolute calm. The moment arrived as the lead truck approached a narrow gap between 2 massive boulders. Physics demanded that the driver maintain a straight line for approximately 3 seconds to navigate the passage. Maria calculated the lead distance and began her trigger squeeze. The rifle bucked against her shoulder as the match-grade ammunition screamed across the mountain valley. Through her scope, Maria watched the bullets impact with professional satisfaction. The round struck the truck's engine block with devastating effect, causing immediate catastrophic failure. The vehicle lurched violently to the right and rolled multiple times before coming to rest against a boulder. Steam and smoke poured from the destroyed engine as the occupants struggled to escape the wreckage. The second truck slammed on its brakes to avoid collision, buying crucial time for the extraction. Vehicle 1 neutralized, Maria reported. Vehicle 2 has stopped approximately 800 meters from LZ Alpha. Outstanding shot, Overwatch 1, Cross acknowledged. Engaging remaining hostiles. Through her scope, Maria could see armed militants climbing from both vehicles and taking cover among the rocks. They were still too far from the landing zone to threaten the hostages directly, but their position would allow interdiction of the extraction helicopters. Overwatch 2 and 3 engaged dismounted hostiles at grid reference 347,291, Maria coordinated. Prevent establishment of firing positions overlooking LZ Alpha. Williams and Chen began systematic engagement of the scattered militants, while Maria searched for high-value targets. Her scope found what appeared to be a leader attempting to coordinate the group's defensive positions from behind a large boulder. The range was 1,434 meters to the target, requiring another precision shot under combat conditions. Maria controlled her breathing and waited for the target to expose himself sufficiently for a clean shot. Patience remained her greatest tactical advantage. The militant leader raised his head to observe the landing zone, providing Maria with the opportunity she needed. Her sixth shot of the engagement eliminated the target cleanly, causing immediate confusion among the remaining enemy forces. "Leadership target down," she reported while acquiring her next target. The sound of approaching helicopters began echoing across the valley as the extraction aircraft arrived on schedule. 2 MH-6 Little Bird helicopters approached the landing zone at high speed, their pilots having been briefed to expect enemy contact during the pickup operation. "Extract birds are 2 minutes out," Cross announced. "Overwatch elements maintain suppressive fire on northern positions." Maria continued engaging targets while monitoring the SEAL team's progress toward the landing zone. Through her scope, she could see Commander Cross and his operators forming a protective perimeter around the 3 rescued hostages. The aid workers appeared exhausted, but mobile, following instructions from their rescuers with admirable composure. The first helicopter touched down in LZ Alpha exactly on schedule. Maria watched the SEAL medic help the hostages aboard while the rest of the team maintained security. The operation was proceeding flawlessly despite the unexpected arrival of enemy reinforcements. "Package 1 secure," Cross reported as the first helicopter lifted off with 2 of the rescued aid workers. The second helicopter began its approach to extract the remaining hostage and the SEAL team. This was the most vulnerable moment of the entire operation, as enemy forces might attempt a desperate assault to prevent the final extraction. "Movement in the northern rocks," Chen reported. "Looks like they're trying to get closer to the LZ." Maria shifted her scope toward Chen's position and identified 3 militants attempting to use dead ground to approach within rocket-propelled grenade range of the landing zone. If they succeeded, they could destroy the extraction helicopter and kill everyone aboard. "I have the advancing team," Maria announced, calculating ranges to the moving targets. The militants were using tactical movement techniques, advancing by bounds while covering each other. Maria recognized professional training in their coordination, suggesting these weren't local militants but experienced foreign fighters. This made them significantly more dangerous. Her 7th shot dropped the lead militant as he attempted to sprint between covered positions. The remaining 2 immediately sought cover, but their advance had been stopped short of effective weapons range. "Lead element down," Maria reported. "Remaining targets are pinned in position." The second extraction helicopter touched down as Commander Cross prepared to load the final hostage. Maria maintained Overwatch coverage, while Williams and Chen continued suppressing enemy positions in the northern rocks. "Movement behind Building 2, Williams reported urgently. "Looks like additional hostiles approaching from the compound." Maria swung her scope back toward the original target area and identified 4 militants who had apparently hidden during the initial assault. They were now attempting to reach firing positions where they could threaten the extraction. The range was over 1,200 meters, but these targets were moving predictably across open ground. Maria's 8th shot eliminated the lead target, causing the others to scramble for cover among the burning buildings. Building 2 threats neutralized, she reported while scanning for additional targets. Commander Cross's voice came through the radio with controlled urgency. Final package loading now. All Overwatch elements prepare to disengage on my command. The second helicopter lifted off carrying the last hostage and half of the SEAL team. Commander Cross and 2 operators remained on the ground to coordinate the Overwatch extraction, which would require careful timing to avoid leaving anyone behind. Overwatch elements begin withdrawal to secondary positions, Cross commanded. Extract birds will return for pickup in 8 minutes. Maria began packing her equipment while maintaining partial observation of the target area. The militants appeared to be regrouping for a final assault, probably realizing that their opportunity to inflict casualties was rapidly diminishing. Multiple targets moving toward LZ Alpha from northern positions, Chen reported as he prepared to displace from his position. Williams confirmed the movement from his vantage point. I count at least 6 hostiles advancing through the rocks. They're going to reach the LZ before our extraction. This was the scenario that required the most difficult decision of the mission. The Overwatch team could maintain their positions and continue engaging targets, but this would prevent their own extraction and likely result in their isolation behind enemy lines. Alternatively, they could withdraw immediately and risk allowing enemy forces to position for attacks against future operations. Commander Cross made the decision without hesitation. Overwatch elements, maintain positions and continue engagement. We do not leave this LZ compromised for follow-on operations. Maria understood the implications immediately. Cross was ordering them to prioritize mission success over their own extraction, trusting that their skills would enable them to hold their positions until the helicopters returned. It was exactly the type of decision that separated elite units from average forces. Copy actual. Overwatch 1 maintaining position, Maria responded while unpacking her rifle again. Williams and Chen confirmed similar commitments from their positions. The Marine sniper team had just volunteered to face overwhelming odds to ensure mission completion, knowing that their professional reputations and possibly their lives depended on the next 8 minutes. Through her scope, Maria watched the advancing militants use increasingly sophisticated tactics as they approached the landing zone. These were definitely experienced fighters who understood the tactical situation and were attempting to coordinate their assault for maximum effect. Engaging lead elements, Maria announced as she settled into position for what might be the most important shots of her career. The fate of the mission, her unit's reputation, and their own survival now depended on 3 Marine snipers holding impossible positions against superior numbers in the darkness of the Syrian mountains. It was exactly the type of challenge that would either validate years of training or expose the limitations of individual heroism against overwhelming odds. Maria placed her crosshairs on the lead militant and prepared to discover which outcome awaited them in the rocky terrain below. The next 8 minutes unfolded like a deadly chess match across the Syrian mountains as Maria and her team faced their ultimate test. Through her scope, she counted 12 militants advancing toward the landing zone using fire and maneuver tactics that confirmed their professional training. Overwatch elements, concentrate fire on the eastern advance, Commander Cross directed from his position near the LZ. Do not allow them to establish supporting positions. Maria's 9th shot dropped a militant carrying what appeared to be a machine gun, eliminating a significant threat to the extraction helicopters. The weapon clattered among the rocks as its operator fell, causing temporary confusion among the advancing group. Target with crew-served weapon neutralized, she reported while immediately acquiring her next target. Williams and Chen were engaging targets from their respective positions with methodical precision. The coordinated fire from 3 different angles was forcing the militants to take cover repeatedly, slowing their advance toward the landing zone. Through her earpiece, Maria could hear the distant sound of approaching helicopters as the extraction aircraft returned for the Overwatch team. The timing would be critical. They needed to suppress enemy advance long enough for the pickup while avoiding friendly fire incidents during the extraction. Extract birds are 3 minutes out, Cross announced. Maintain suppressive fire until final approach. A militant broke cover and sprinted toward a position that would provide direct fire capability against landing helicopters. Maria tracked him through her scope, calculating the lead required for a target moving at full speed across uneven terrain. Her 10th shot caught the runner mid-stride, eliminating the threat before he could reach his intended position. The precision of the long-range shot under combat conditions represented everything she had worked to achieve throughout her military career. Running target down, Maria reported with professional calm that masked the intensity of the engagement. The remaining militants were now taking desperate measures, realizing their opportunity was rapidly disappearing. 3 fighters attempted a coordinated assault across open ground, hopping to overwhelm the sniper positions through aggressive movement. Multiple targets advancing simultaneously, Williams reported as his rifle cracked repeatedly. Engaging Western group, Chen confirmed from his position. Maria focused on the central target of the 3-man assault team. At 1,156 meters, the shot required perfect timing as the militant bounded between rock formations. She waited for his next movement, anticipating his route based on the terrain. Her 11th shot eliminated the target just as he attempted to sprint across a 20-meter gap between boulders. The successful engagement broke up the coordinated assault and forced the survivors back into defensive positions. Central target down, assault broken, she reported. The sound of helicopter rotors grew louder as the extraction aircraft approached the landing zone. Maria could see dust beginning to swirl in the distance as the pilots prepared for what would likely be a hot extraction under enemy fire. Overwatch elements prepare for immediate extraction on touchdown, Cross commanded. Extraction will be 90 seconds maximum. Maria began packing her equipment for rapid movement while maintaining observation through her scope. The militants appeared to be preparing for a final desperate assault, timed to coincide with the helicopter landing. 6 targets massing behind northern ridgeline, Chen reported urgently. They're going to assault during extraction. This was exactly what mission planners had feared, a coordinated enemy assault during the vulnerable extraction phase when the helicopter would be most exposed to ground fire. The Overwatch team would need to suppress this final attack while simultaneously reaching the aircraft for extraction. Overwatch 1, can you interdict that assault? Cross asked. Maria studied the terrain where Chen had identified the massing militants. They were using a depression behind the ridgeline to mass for assault, but she had identified a position where they would be briefly exposed during their approach to the landing zone. Affirmative, I can engage them during their initial movement, Maria replied while calculating ranges and angles for the interdiction shot. The first extraction helicopter touched down at LZ Alpha as Commander Cross and his remaining operators prepared to board. Dust clouds immediately obscured visibility around the aircraft, creating the chaos that militants would exploit for their assault. Moving now, came an urgent voice over the radio as the militants began their final attack. Through her scope, Maria watched 8 fighters emerge from cover and begin a coordinated rush toward the helicopter. Their timing was perfect. The aircraft was most vulnerable during the loading phase when it couldn't maneuver defensively. Maria's 12th shot caught the assault leader at 934 meters, causing immediate disruption to their coordination. Williams and Chen were engaging targets simultaneously, their combined fire breaking up what should have been an overwhelming attack. Lead element down, Maria reported while engaging her next target. The militants' assault continued despite casualties, their desperation overcoming tactical discipline. 2 fighters actually reached effective small arms range before being eliminated by defensive fire from the helicopter crew. Overwatch 1, your bird is inbound 30 seconds, Cross announced as he boarded the first extraction helicopter. Maria's extraction aircraft appeared through the darkness, approaching at high speed with all lights extinguished. She had approximately 40 seconds to reach the landing zone while maintaining suppressive fire against any remaining threats. Moving to extract, she announced while shouldering her rifle and beginning the dangerous sprint down the mountainside. The 400-meter dash to the landing zone required her to traverse exposed terrain while carrying 60 pounds of equipment. Behind her, Williams and Chen were conducting similar movements from their positions, all 3 Marines converging on the helicopter under potential enemy fire. Maria reached the aircraft as the pilots held steady despite sporadic gunfire from the remaining militants. She dove through the open door and immediately turned to provide cover for Williams and Chen, who were still approaching across open ground. Williams reached the helicopter 10 seconds later, followed closely by Chen, who had made an impressive sprint while carrying his heavy equipment load. All three Marines were aboard as the pilot pulled maximum power and lifted off into the darkness. Overwatch elements extracted successfully, Maria reported as the helicopter gained altitude and distance from the target area. Through the aircraft's window, she could see the burning compound receding below them while scattered gunfire continued from the rocky positions where militants continued their futile resistance. The mission had succeeded completely. All three hostages rescued without friendly casualties, and the enemy force neutralized. Commander Cross's voice came through her headset as the two helicopters flew toward the forward operating base. Outstanding work, Marines. Your Overwatch coverage was absolutely critical to mission success. The professional recognition from a SEAL Team 6 commander carried weight that transcended military rank or unit affiliation. Maria had proven her capabilities under the most demanding conditions possible, earning respect through demonstrated competence rather than political mandates. "Thank you, sir. It was an honor working with your team," Maria replied. As the helicopter continued its flight through the Syrian night, Maria reflected on the profound changes the mission had brought to her professional relationships. Corporal Mitchell, who had mocked her tattoo just days earlier, was now looking at her with obvious admiration and respect. "Santos," Mitchell said over the aircraft's intercom, "I owe you an apology that goes way beyond what I said before. Watching you work tonight, that was the most professional shooting I've ever seen." The sentiment was echoed by Chen and Williams, who had witnessed Maria's performance under pressure firsthand. Combat had a way of revealing truth that no amount of training or politics could obscure. "We're all Marines," Maria replied simply. "We do what the mission requires." But privately, she felt the satisfaction of having proven herself beyond any remaining doubt. The tattoo that had been mocked was revealed as a symbol of honor and sacrifice that perfectly represented her commitment to military excellence. The forward operating base appeared in the distance as both helicopters approached for landing. Maria could see personnel waiting to debrief the successful mission and tend to the rescued hostages, who would soon be reunited with their families. As the aircraft touched down, Maria realized that her professional journey had reached a crucial milestone. The doubts and challenges she had faced since joining the unit had been answered definitively through performance under fire. She had earned her place among the elite operators through skill, courage, and unwavering dedication to mission success. Commander Cross met the Marine team as they disembarked from the helicopter. His expression carried the respect reserved for fellow professionals who had proven themselves under the ultimate test of combat. "Staff Sergeant Santos," he said, approaching Maria directly, "I wanted to personally thank you for your exceptional performance tonight. Your shooting was absolutely critical to our success." The SEAL commander extended his hand in recognition of a fellow warrior who had earned respect through demonstrated capability. As Maria shook his hand, she felt the satisfaction of knowing she had proven herself worthy of the trust placed in her. The mockery of her tattoo had been replaced by professional respect earned through performance when it mattered most. In the unforgiving crucible of combat, individual capability had proven more important than prejudice or assumptions. Maria Santos had finally found her place among warriors who judged each other solely by the standards that mattered: courage, competence, and commitment to mission success. The Syrian mountains had provided the ultimate test, and she had answered with the precision and professionalism that defined elite military service. As dawn broke over the forward operating base, Maria cleaned her rifle one final time and reflected on a mission that had changed everything. The tattoo that honored her fallen brother had been vindicated along with her own professional reputation, proving that some symbols carry meaning that transcends casual judgment. The eagle on her shoulder would never be mocked again, because everyone now understood exactly what it represented.